Okay, the last two presentations of this day are examples of construction skills projects. This presentation that I'm going to give is mainly about ProfTrack. It is, I think, the first project that has been contracted in construction skills. And the full title is Professional Multidisciplinary Training and Continuing Development in Skills for NZEP Principles. So this leads me immediately to the overall goal of ProfTrack, and the overall aim is quite simple: to develop and maintain an open education and an open education platform for continuing professional development for professionals in the building sector. And this platform is specifically addressing technical experts, engineers, architects and building managers. And we do it at a middle and senior professional level. And that has to do with the fact that the previous Builtup skills projects mainly addressed blue-collar workers, and this was one of the first projects also addressing white-collar workers. And this is also supported by an European qualification scheme, I come back to that later, as a part of a long-life learning process, and can be used for upskilling and training of professionals. And why are construction skills so important? I see now that this is not my latest presentation, but I will improvise. Of course, the main aims are already, I think, addressed. What's quite important is that we have about 3 million workers that should be trained in the European Union. And this brings us also to the challenge of ProfTrack, and this is that we need to improve the skills specifically on middle and senior level of these professionals. And we do this with upgrading and setting up large-scale qualification and training schemes. And there's one particular thing that is quite important, and that was addressed by you, Jens, during a presentation that you gave for Housing Europe and ProfTrack in March this year. And you simply said, there is no quality and no quality control without training. And this is exactly, I think, where it is about in Builtup skills and also in construction skills. So it is not specifically on the training, it's the quality that we are aiming for. And therefore links, for example, with the quality check action is quite important. So, some of the outcomes. One of the first outcomes was that we developed a roadmap to train NZEP professionals in 2 steps. The first step was adapting methodologies of the national Builtup skills actions. So we didn't have to start from scratch. Only Builtup skills focuses on blue-collar workers, and we extended it in ProfTrack to white-collar workers. And the methodology, as we developed, is available for any newcomer training provider, and you can find it on our website. And we did this specifically in 7 countries. Then the second step was that we developed this roadmap on a national level, first on a national level. And we focused specifically on successful implementation on a national level of the NZEP trainings that we provided in our trainers program, and so organizing on a national level national trainings. And from there we came to a more generic European roadmap, which basically does the same on a European level, but it's focusing more on the similarities that we found and corresponding outcomes for the several member states. Then I think one of the most important and useful outcomes is the methodology that we developed for skills mapping. And to come to this skills mapping methodology, it's quite simple, but it is quite useful as well, is that we first defined the professions involved in NZEP building and renovations, the skills levels, the relevant technologies that there are, on energy management, energy production, energy efficiency, renewables, etc., but also on interdisciplinary skills, such as communication and economics. The next step was that national experts mapped, on one hand, the current skills needed to come to answer buildings and renovation, and what is actually needed. And the difference between what is needed and what is present, that is what we call the skills gap at a certain skills level. It's not so difficult to perform such a skills mapping exercise, but nevertheless there are some lessons that we have learned, and the most important lesson is that the results can depend to quite an extent on the expert that's filling in these different skills for different professions. So if you let it do by just one expert, it can be a little bit biased by his or her opinion. What we also saw was that we notified different skills for different professions. For example, we have one partner, Housing Europe. They mainly address managers in the housing sector, and they absolutely need totally different skills than, for example, architects and engineers. Another lesson that we learned was that also the skills required, for example, for architects, can vary from country to country. For example, in the Netherlands, it's totally different than in our neighboring country, Belgium. This is an example of how skills mapping how our skills mapping tool looks like. It's a simple Excel spreadsheet where you can fill in for several professionals the different skills and the skills levels that are needed and that are available, are present. And this Excel sheet automatically give a color which indicates the skills gap that is present. It's very simple to use. Then another outcome is the European Qualification Scheme. It's now almost ready. We are discussing the draft results later this week during our meeting in Prague. And in this qualification scheme, we defined several kinds of technologies, again, also the professions involved, and in very short terms, what kind of qualifications he or she should need to perform this job. And it's done for, I think, almost all professions and all technologies that we could find. Then we have a very practical app, the Builtup Skills Advisor app. It's an app that you can use as a professional, but it is also meant for blue-collar workers because it's partly developed in Builtup Skills. First of all, it starts with the definition of the sector that you're working in, the profession that you have, the specification, and the courses that are available. And from this, you can fill in your personal profile. You can do it on a tablet or a smartphone or whatsoever. And this app shows you to what extent you are fit to do your job and what kind of upskilling and training you need and which kind of trainings you can use to perform this upskilling. As far as I know, it's now fully operational in Dutch language, but we also are working now on an English version. Then I think this is also quite useful for everybody to use. This is our ProfTrack database. It's online. You find the website link there. And it basically continues all the training materials that we could find from relevant European projects. One of the main sources is the IEE EDIS EDU projects, in which about 100 lectures were developed, and everything is here in this database. It has a search engine, so you can select topics, type of project, the building use, etc. And it's quite useful material if you want to organize courses. We also have an educational guide for if you want to organize national trainings. So we have, in fact, two parts. We do not address direct training of professionals, but we work with train-the-trainers programs. But these trained trainers, they organize national courses. And once being trained in ProfTrack, you can use this educational guide to develop a training in your own country. So for the training methods, the train-the-trainer sessions and the train-the-trainer program, that is also one of the cores of ProfTrack. It's organized on a European level, so it's a central train-the-trainer program, and the main goal of this is to create ambassadors for our projects. And these trained experts, they will organize also trainings on a national scale and can also train other trainers. And by doing so, we hope to create a snowball effect. Until now, we had 3 train-the-trainer courses as interactive face-to-face trainings on 3 locations in Europe. And these events were, they lasted 2 days with a full program, day and also evening. And this was very well appreciated by the trainers. The next training rounds are webinars, and at this moment the 4th train-the-trainer session as a webinar is going on. And we do this to make it more easily accessible for new teachers. And all the lectures, etc., they are also, you can find them in our open platform. There's also a nice promotion video if you would like to see it. So, all by all, for the train-the-trainer sessions, we decided to work with small groups, about 20 to 25 persons. But in the webinars, the 4th webinar, we have an audience about, I think, 80 persons at this moment. So from there, from these train-the-trainer sessions, we come to national training programs. We did it in the Netherlands, Spain, Italy, Czech Republic, Slovenia, and Croatia. There's one country was planned, that was Denmark, but somehow, although we did many efforts for it, it's not working in that country. Apparently, experts are trained, I think, in Denmark, I don't know. But for the national courses, we normally have about 20 to 40 attendants, and in the second year, the first round of courses were given, and in every country now a second course is already been executed as on basis of business as usual, so in the programs of the national training providers. Some words about, and I see that they did not use my presentation that I sent, so I have to do it at random. Some words about new developments. What we saw already in the presentation of Amandine Lacour is that especially BIM is quite important, and also ICT related technologies. And the current projects that have been contracted, they all address BIM to a certain extent. I'm working in one of these projects, that is Bimplement, and there we use BIM as a kind of information carrier to enhance quality. So what you see in these projects, you can do it, they are addressing roughly 2 ways. It is either training on using of BIM or using BIM as a new way of innovative training. And this is what has been done in Bimplement. So there we use BIM really as a kind of an information carrier on all kind of moments in the building or renovation process, and also addressing the several levels and traits. And actually what we try to do is to see if you are making, for example, a certain detail in a building, that you know what an engineer needs to know, but also what an engineer needs to know about the skills of an installer, for example, but also what an installer has to know about understanding the designs. And in this way, you can use BIM to come to a cross-trade and cross-level quality enhancement. Some conclusions and some takeaways. First of all, we have to, within the construction skills projects and the build-up skills projects, we have to train about 3 million workers. The question is, can we do this? I think it looks tremendous if you could do it, but I think these projects now, they're not a stitch in time. They really have reached something. And especially what I notice is working with train-the-trainer programs is very useful because you can create a snowball effect. Another conclusion for me is that especially these exchange meetings that we have, they were very useful and very fruitful also to understand from my point of view as coordinator of a construction skills project, also about build-up skills projects for blue-collar workers, and so come to an understanding of what's going on for the different levels and trades. And most of all, what we also saw was, for example, during the Budapest meeting last year, there were at least 3 good projects, ideas for elaborated then. That's it. Thank you.
Thank you, Peter.